My Jesus, my Savior, Lord, there is none like you. All of my days, I want to praise the wonders of your mighty love. My comfort, my shelter, tower of refuge and strength. Let every breath, all that I am, never cease to worship you. Shout to the Lord on the earth, let us sing. Power and majesty, praise to the King. Mountains bow down and the seas will roar at the sound of your name. I sing for joy at the work of your hands. Forever I'll love you, forever I'll stand. Nothing compares to the promise I have in you. My Jesus, my Savior, Lord, there is none like you. All of my days, I want to praise the wonders of your mighty love. My comfort, my shelter, tower of refuge and strength. Let every breath, all that I am, never cease to worship you. Oh, shout to the Lord, all the earth, let us sing. Power and majesty, praise to the King. Mountains bow down and the seas will roar at the sound of your name. I sing for joy at the work of your hands. Forever I'll love you, forever I'll stand. Nothing compares to the promise I have. No, nothing compares to the promise I have. Nothing compares to the promise I have in you. So these next two songs speak of two things about God. God is great, and God is merciful. So I'm thankful that we can be here to sing His praises and sing of His greatness and of His mercy when He sent His Son to die on the cross. You are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. with hope. You restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. Pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. We sing, great are you, Lord. Great are you, Lord. Savior, I come, quiet my soul. Redemption's hill, where your blood was spilled for my ransom. Everything I once held dear, I count it all as lost. to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Lord, lead me. Lead me to the cross. You were as I, tempted and tried. Human. The Word became flesh for my sin and death. Now you're risen. Everything I once felt dear, I count it all as lost. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Lord, lead me. Lead me to the cross. To your heart. To your heart. Lead me to your heart. Lead me to your heart. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Lord, lead me. Lead me to the cross. Father, lead me to the cross. Lead me to the cross.
I invite the deacons to come up front, please. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day that you allow us to come here to your house freely, and we praise you for that you have been good to us and bless our house, our homes, our families. You've given us the bread, the roof that we need in order to live. We praise you and thank you. We thank you for that. And in this moment, God, we are returning what's yours. We're returning with tithe, with a happy heart, and gladly in our souls. We also give you our offerings. Please use this for the preaching of your gospel. Help us being good stewards of those blessings that you give us, those providings that you give each one of us. And God, maybe one of us who are struggling financially. We probably are not knowing how, we don't know how to manage the finances in our homes. Please show us the way to pray, to preach about you also through our finances. We pray and we thank you for this. Amen.
So the original scripture reading was found in Matthew 18:11, but it turns out that in the Pew Bible that's actually important. I think it would be easier if we read Luke 19:10 because actually, basically the same. So here I was in Luke 19:10. The Pew Bible is page 740. Luke 19:10. And it says, "The Son of Man came to seek what and to save what is lost."
For those who can, I invite you to kneel to our Lord. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you again for this opportunity that you give us to just talk to you in this moment, to be in an intimate relationship with you, that you allow us to feel your presence here, God. We praise you for your mercies, for your grace with us. May you be exalted for all eternity. God, we ask you to forgive our sins with the blood of Jesus Christ. None of us that we're here are perfect. You know our struggles, you know our fights, you know how we stumble in life. But in the name of Christ, God, we want to serve you. We want to give our lives to you. We want to be better for your honor and your glory. That's why in this moment, we ask you, God, to show us your plans. To let us feel your presence, to illuminate our minds. Let us feel your love in our hearts. So we can see with your eyes. We can listen with your ears. So we can go out and help the needed one. And we can feel with your heart. We ask especially also for Pastor Vargas, that each single word that comes out of his mouth is inspired by your Holy Spirit. It's based on it is written. God, many of us, we have different needs. We're going through different situations. God, you are the God of wonders. You are the Almighty God, all powerful. And we know, God, that you will help us, but not in our times, but in your time. So we ask that you show us, that you help us to learn what you want us to learn. Help us understanding this situation that each one of us we're going through. So we can say, now I understand, God. Now I see what you wanted me to learn, and now I'm closer to you. God, bless each home, bless each heart that is represented here this morning. And may at the end of this service, when we step out of your house, we don't step out of your presence, but people can see you through us for your glory. And all of this we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Hello. I'll be doing the social music. Usually don't want to be in the center of the churches. If you can close your eyes and just enjoy the music. to give us less than things. 'Cause what if your blessings come through raindrops? What if your healing comes through tears? What if 1,000 sleepless nights are what it takes to know your need? What if trust of this life are your mercies in disguise? We pray for wisdom, your voice to hear. We cry in anger when we cannot hear you near. We doubt your goodness, we doubt your love. As if every promise from your word is not enough. All the while, you hear each desperate plea. As long as we have faith to believe. 'Cause what if your blessings come through raindrops? What if your healing comes through tears? What if 1,000 sleepless nights are what it takes to know your need? What if trust of this life are your mercies in disguise? When friends betray us, when darkness seems to win with wrong, and pain reminds us heart that this is not our home. It's not our home. 'Cause what if your blessings come through raindrops? What if your healing comes through tears? What if 1,000 sleepless nights are what it takes to know your need? What if trust of this life are your mercies in disguise? What if my greatest disappointments or the aching of this life is the revealing of a greater thirst? This word can satisfy. What if trust of this life, where in the storm the hardest nights are your mercies in disguise?
Sabbath Church. The pastor graciously gave me a few minutes to present something. So, this month is mental health awareness. At least one of the things that's going on in the month. And I wanted to, I was looking to share something, and I came across something that was written today by a person who works for a TV station. I think he was interviewing for a story, and he relates what was going on during the interview and what's going on in his life. And I think a lot of us could relate to this, and a lot of us could reach out. One of the biggest things that I think a lot of us see is depression. It's huge. With everything that's going on in this world, it's one of the most common at different levels and stages mental conditions that we see in this world that is spinning out of control, as we say. So I want to share this because I think all of us can relate, and at the end, as Christians, I think we can relate to each other. So he says, while he's sitting waiting for this interview, or during this interview, he says, "My body was exhausted from an intense treatment for a chronic illness. A doctor had just reported that my dad would probably be dead in 6 months. And I felt like I was failing as a dad because I spent so much time at work. I was lost in a sea of depression and I couldn't find my way through. When I heard the host's voices in my earpiece and I knew the camera was rolling, I did the same thing I had been doing for months. I put on a smile, and when the interview was over, I looked into the camera and concluded with a relaxed grin. All appeared to be well. I pulled out my earpiece, thanked the producer, left the studio, and felt the weight of the role creeping back onto my shoulders. I wasn't smiling anymore. I went back to the grind, putting one foot in front of the other, just doing the next step. It would be a couple of months before I began emerging from the heaviness of depression, thanks to what can only be described as divine intervention for us, of course, be our Lord and Savior. These days, I'm a lot more aware of silent suffering of others, and I'm less likely to assume the worst about people who are hard to be around. Along those lines, I posted a tweet last week that said, "We'll all meet someone today who's being crushed by life. We won't know who it is, so we might as well be gentle with everyone we meet, because you never know." A lot of people are. I know a man who's waiting to find out if his third round of chemotherapy worked. I know a woman who had 3 siblings die in less than a week. I know a woman whose husband puts her down all the time. I know a man whose beloved son started hanging out with the wrong crowd and is now a drug addict. These people just keep putting one foot in front of the other, doing the next thing, working, attending church, standing in line at the grocery store. They're not telling many people how they're feeling. It's too personal. It's too painful. They might start crying if they try to talk about it. There's no way to know who's hurting the most, so we can take care of others in practical ways. We can ask people how they're doing, follow up, and give them a chance to respond honestly. We can avoid assuming our friends are doing well just because they're smiling and saying they're fine. I can tell you from personal experience that it means a lot when you're depressed just to get a thoughtful text or email. So let's be good to the cashier, our child's teacher, the person driving poorly in traffic, our coworker, and or our parents. Let's give others the grace we all need. As it was once said, be kind. Everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle, and those who are fighting the hardest battle may be right in front of you. May God bless us as we think, because the Bible says that we're put on this earth to bless others. And if we all think that way, we'll be blessing others and others will be blessing us. We're all suffering because we're in this world, and it's a sinful world. It's a world of suffering. So I think as Christians, we can relate to this, and hopefully we can take it to heart and make a difference. Thank you.
Alrighty, happy Sabbath. Thank you, Dr. Chivas, for that. It's interesting, I was reading something about that the other day. They said that one of the vocations that where people suffer a lot of depression is pastoral work. That surprised me. I thought we'd be the happiest. But it was just interesting, just even just kind of what they went through and the signs. And sometimes, it's not that all depression is the same, but that there could be a mild depression and just the signs. And I thought it was interesting. But thank you for that. And please let's all try to brighten somebody's day, because even just a smile, a text, anything can make a difference in somebody's life. Welcome again. I see some faces that I haven't seen in a while. Thank you for coming. Thank you for worshiping with us. And today's message is called The Seeking Church. And I want to start this message a little different. I want to ask a question, and I want you guys to think and shout out any answers that might come to you. My question to you today is, what is the most important moment in the church every Sabbath? What is the most important moment in the church every Sabbath? Now, I know that this question is pretty subjective because there's a lot of answers. I'm probably looking for one particular answer, but anybody? I asked this question at my former church, and this lady, she had a good sense of humor, but she was sincere. She said, Pastor, and she was loud. She said, Pastor, the most important moment of Sabbath is potluck. Oh, I mean, it wasn't the answer I was looking for, but I mean, it was an answer, right? At least she answered. And obviously to her, potluck is important. And potluck is important because we fellowship, we have good food, and Miguel's always surprising us with different things that he makes. But anybody, what is the most important to you as you've been here at this church? What is the most important moment in this church every Sabbath? What do you guys think? Anybody? Anybody brave enough? And you can't use the potluck from there. Anybody? All right, praise and worship. All right. That was a biased answer. No, it's good. Praise and worship. That's important. Anybody else?
Family.
The sermon?
Family.
Family. Okay. All righty. The welcoming. Okay, the welcoming. The welcoming is important. Judy.
Praying for each other.
Praying for each other. Okay. All those answers are very good. Very good. And I'm not saying they're wrong. Alongside that question, who are the most important people every Sabbath? Just think. Maybe Jesus can help us today with the story we're going to look at. You see, one thing we got to understand is that church service is not for saints. Big surprise, right? Church service is for sinners. Why do you guys think God made the statement that said, my house of prayer should be for all people? Not just for certain people, but for all people. So maybe today, the story we're going to look at will help us understand and help our church understand what the church is for. See, one thing I can guarantee, one thing I can say with surety is that Jesus is about one thing. Jesus is about seeking lost people. That's it. That's the bottom line. Jesus is the business of looking for lost people. And we, as a church, we were called to do what? It's in the title. We're supposed to seek people. We're supposed to do the same work that Jesus did. But somewhere along the lines, we kind of lost focus. You see, the reason we complain and grumble in church is because we think that church is for us. The church service order has to be for us. The sermon has to be for us. But you see, Jesus didn't come for the righteous, but for the sinner. So in answer to my question, in which you all gave wonderful answers, the most important moment of the church is when the doors are open, so someone could come to Jesus. That's the most important. At least they're all good, but that's the one I was looking for. That's the most important moment of El Centro, let's say, when the doors are open, when the elder or the deacons open the door, and someone can come to Jesus. That's the most important moment of the church. Now, if you go with me to the book of Luke, chapter 15, verse 1. Luke 15:1. We all know this story. And it's the parable of the lost sheep, and we've all heard it many times. Many pastors have preached about it. And you know what? The thing is that the parables that Jesus said, they're important and they're powerful. The thing is that a lot of times, we've heard them so many times, we become desensitized. We just don't see any value in it. Oh, it's just the parable of the lost sheep. Big deal. You know, I've heard it, been there, done that. Heard it so many times. But and that's what happens in our experience. It's like when you're at home and you hear a dog bark. At first you're like, okay, somebody might have, something's barking for a reason, right? You go check, there's nothing. After a while, you become desensitized. It's just another dog barking. You see an ambulance, and you go, oh man, I wonder if it's not an emergency. But after a while, you become desensitized. It's just another ambulance. We've seen so many shootings in the last year that We become desensitized at times. We just say, well, it's just another shooting. It's just another day in the hood. It's just another day in this awful world we live in. But you see, we got to pay attention. Luke chapter 15, verse 1. Then all the tax collectors and the sinners drew near to him to hear him. They came to hear Jesus. They came to hear something about him. Now, let me just tell you something real quick. If you don't come to church because you have a sense of need, and only come because you think you are saved and righteous, if you don't come with a sense of need, then I ask you, what are you doing here? What am I doing here? If I don't come with a sense of need, a desire to reach out to Jesus, to seek Jesus, to be better than I was yesterday, what am I doing here? That's the purpose of the church. And I'm pretty sure you've heard where people say, well, the church is like a hospital, right? And in theory, we think it. But in practice, do we really believe it? Do we believe it? I know some of you, we got some nurses in the house and stuff, and people have worked in the medical field. You know, I haven't worked in the medical field. I was a chaplain at a hospital. But one thing I did notice as a chaplain was that the people who are there, who are sick, whether they're terminal or not, one thing that I learned working at a hospital, even just just as a chaplain, is that I never once heard patients, gossip about each other or criticize each other. If anything, they would encourage each other. If anything, it's going to be okay. You know, I'm in the same boat as you are. And that was so, and shouldn't our church be that way? And yet our church, it's a hospital, we're all messed up, some of us are more terminal than others, and yet we just can't get it together, you know? If only a sinner understands another sinner. Until we see ourselves for who we are, then we'll stop criticizing. We'll stop trying to yank out other people's weeds. We'll start focusing on ourselves and praying for others. And you know, a lot of times we just get so caught up. And it's so easy to point fingers. But you see, Jesus is about to speak, and all these people rush into him. See, what I'm doing today is I'm attacking your sense of church. You see, the reason we get into debates in the church about the kind of music and this and that and the other is because we have a picture of church that is non-biblical. It's not biblical. Church services, in all its facets, should be designed in a way that anybody walking off the street feels comfortable as soon as they come into the church. All our ministries should reach out to those outside. If our ministries right now are not doing anything for those outside, then we missed the boat. It's not just about in-reach, it's about outreach. Even today, if somebody just came off the street, could they understand what we're doing here? Would our services speak to them? That's what we got to ask ourselves. You see, because unfortunately, we have developed this box idea of church, certain patterns, certain liturgy, etc. It has to be a certain way because that's the way the church has always done it. But we got to remember, the church is God's church, and it's supposed to be a seeking church. That's what it should be. That's what it was called to be. Remember last week I said, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I said that the church's job was never to pass judgment. That's true. That was never the church's job. That's God's job. And yeah, we think we can judge people. Wow, the audacity that some of us have. And check it out. These people come to Jesus, and look who gets mad. Verse 2, and the Pharisees and the scribes complained, saying, this man receives sinners and eats with them. So who gets mad? Not the other sinners. It's the church people who get mad. They say, man, why is Jesus eating with these people? These are sinners. They don't belong here in church. They don't belong with us. We're righteous. We're at another level. Why is he intermingling with these people who have no hope, who shouldn't even be near us? It's the church folk that get mad at Jesus. It's the church folk that start complaining that they don't want these people around. And it's interesting that Jesus says, so he spoke this parable to them saying, what man of you having 100 sheep, if he loses one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after that one which is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost. I say to you likewise that there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 just persons who need no repentance. Jesus goes into the story. We all heard the story before. He loses one. He leaves the 99. And where does he leave the 99? Anybody following me? In the wilderness, in the open field. A. White says something very interesting. I really don't like putting her in concerns, but A. White says something very interesting about this parable. She says, the wilderness represents Jesus leaving the other sheep to their own attitudes. See, because a lot of times, those that are in the church, we tend to criticize those who leave the church, who are out, they're out in the world now. Oh my goodness. We tend to just go, they were with us, but they're not with us anymore. But Jesus leaves them to their feelings, to their discontent, and he goes and he leaves them in the open field, and he goes for this one sheep. And if you've ever lost anything in your life, you know how it is when you find it. You know, it may be a trinket. I remember I was going to start playing baseball, and I had a lucky glove, and I put it away. And it was all like more like a pancake than a glove, but it was my lucky glove. And I remember I looked everywhere for it. I went through all my boxes, and I probably found some little friends that I didn't know were there. But I found some mics too, and it's a bunch of cool stuff. And if you like rugs and stuff, but I found all kinds of stuff. I found stuff that I thought I didn't even have. But when I found that glove, my mom said, wouldn't it just been easier to go to the sports store and buy another one? I said, yes, it would have, but this is the glove. I forgot who signed it. I don't know if it was Mike Trout. Somebody signed it. Somebody awesome from the Angels. But anyways, yeah. So, but it's awesome when you find something, and Jesus is saying the same thing. He goes, which one of you? Think about it. He in another place he also told him, which one of you loses something and you don't help him out, So Jesus goes out, he finds this one sheep. And one thing, if you've read anything about sheep are probably, trying to be politically correct here, they're probably the dumbest animal. I can't put it any softer than that. They're nearsighted. If they wander off, they have no sense of GPS. They don't know how to get back. And they'll just, and they don't go anywhere. They'll just start, just there, and they're just crying out, but they won't go anywhere. So, isn't that quite it's similar, right? It's a representation of us, right? We're like lambs, right? We sometimes separate, we go places, and we're clueless of what's going on, right? So Jesus goes and gets this lamb, puts it on his shoulders. Notice that. He just doesn't, if a lot of, if the parable could have been written about us, it'd probably be a section where we're, telling the lamb why he left, because we're like that, right? It's people, right? Yeah, it's something, somebody does something, if we're a parent, we call our kid all the 50 names that we name them. You know what I'm saying? Juan Jose, okay? You know what I'm saying? And if it was about us, we'd be scolding the lamb, and we'd be telling him that that's what he gets. You know what I'm saying? You know how we are. Hispanics, we tend to be like that. But you see, Jesus doesn't do that. Jesus does not throw it at the lamb's face. He doesn't scold them. What he does is he puts him on his shoulders as a sign that, I was missing you. I'm embracing you. It doesn't matter where you went. It doesn't matter that you ran away. It doesn't matter that you left me, even though I've cared for you all this time. The fact that I found you, That's amazing. The fact that you are now with me, I will carry you on my shoulder so all the other lambs can see what you mean to me. And that's the great thing about God. When people who have left the church come back, a lot of us are so quick and so judgmental to criticize and say, where were you? But the awesome thing about it is Jesus brings that lost person back on his shoulders saying, he was lost, but now he is found. And that's the type of God we serve. He's ever looking for the lost, ever searching. That is the attitude that we as a people should have. Sometimes people say, well, Pastor, we just had a Revelation seminar, and how come there's no more revival? How come there's no more revival? How come we're not seeing more things? Because I come to the conclusion that sometimes, I don't know, are we ready to receive people? Are we? Are we ready to see people that are so different from us? I remember I went to a church, and I had just come into the church, and I remember I invited one of my friends. He was from my band, and this guy was pretty bad. I mean, bad looking, in a good way. I mean, he was just this rock and roll guy. I mean, he looked the part. I mean, he was like Axl Rose, Nicky Six, all rolled up into one, you know what I'm saying, with a little bit of James Hetfield from Metallica. I mean, this guy just looked up, I mean, he had the image. And I remember I invited him, and he goes, well, he was open to it, because I had known him for years, and he went, and he didn't really have no clothes, but he had some amazing tattoos. I give him that much. The guy had awesome ink. And so he came to church, and I said, I'll be right back. So I went to the restroom, and he sat down, and I'm not going to lie to you. He sat down next to this lady, and the lady, from being like a close proximity to him, the lady had jumped to another bench by the end of 5 minutes. I mean, she was freaked out. I don't know. Nobody in that church said hi to my friend. Nobody. I mean, he didn't have leprosy. He just had tattoos. My goodness. He was seeking Jesus. He was seeking God. He was seeking something different. I had told him that our church was different. I had told him that Jesus loved him. And after the service, I felt ashamed. I didn't know what to say. And basically, in not so many words, he said, "No, church was cool." I said, "Would you come again?" He says, I went to Calvary Chapel. They treated me a lot better. That was hard. It was hard. It was hard to take, because we lost out on somebody because he just didn't look like the rest of us. He didn't have the uniformity. He didn't have the suit, but he had a pure heart looking for Jesus. And that's what we got to take into consideration. It's not about how we look on the outside. It's what we look on the inside. And sometimes, be careful, because your criticisms, your lack of friendliness, the Holy Spirit may be leading this one person to come here. And because you're just so closed in what you believe, how a person should look, that you drive them away. We don't want to do that. We were not called to drive people away. We were called to seek people. All kinds of people. People with tattoos, with everything. I mean, why does it, who are we? If God can save anybody, he can save a person with tattoos. That's not, what's wrong with us? So sometimes I wonder, are we ready to receive people? Are you ready for people to sit by you who probably smell like smoke, who probably smell like them and Jack Daniels had a great time the night before? Are you ready to receive these people when they come, to welcome them, to tell them that Jesus loves them, that Jesus died for them, and save them a place next to you? That's the question. Are we ready? You see, the church service is not an entertainment service. Sometimes we see the church like it's our own backyard. That only what I like should occur. Only the people I invite should come. I pray that God helps us really, really embrace that he has called our church to be a seeking church. I pray that God really helps us understand why we were called as a church. We weren't called because we're better than anybody else. We were called because we're the worst. We're the misfits. I get an amen, so I don't think you all believe it, but that's all right. We're not perfect, but God, God didn't choose you because you're perfect, because you're right. He picked you because He loved you. And because through you, He can do something. He can reach out to other people. I pray that this church truly becomes a seeking church. Okay?
Let's stand and sing. I serve the risen Savior, He's in the world today. I know that He is living, whatever men may say. I see His hand of mercy, I hear His voice of cheer. And just the time I need Him, He's always near. He lives, Christ Jesus lives today. He walks with me and talks with me along life's narrow way. He lives, salvation to impart. You ask me how I know He lives. He lives within my heart. In all the world around me, I see His love and care. And though my heart grows weary, I never will despair. The Lord is leading through all the stormy blast. The day of His appearing will come at last. He lives, Christ Jesus lives today. He walks with me and talks with me along life's narrow way. He lives, salvation to impart. You ask me how I know He lives. He lives within my heart. Rejoice, O Christian, lift up your voice and sing. Eternal hallelujah to Jesus Christ the King. The hope of all who seek Him, the help of all who find. None other is so lovely, so good and divine. He lives, Christ Jesus lives today. He walks with me and talks with me along life's narrow way. He lives, salvation to impart. You ask me how I know He lives. He lives within my heart.
All right, before final prayer, I just want to remind the church members, please stay after church for a very brief, yes, I'm going to say it, very brief business meeting. But it is important. It is very important. I've been delaying it because